Hey team, welcome back. I want to introduce this concept today of followership. So, when I was around 5 years old, my mom was interviewing for a supervisor role, and I asked her, Mom, what happens if you get this role? And she says, well, I become the boss. And then I asked her, who becomes your boss? And she says, well, my boss's boss becomes my boss. And so I asked her, well, what happens when you become your boss's boss? And she said, well, then my boss's boss's boss becomes my boss. And being the 5-year-old that I was at the time, I wanted to keep pulling on this thread. And I asked her, what happens if you become the boss of all bosses? And she turned to me and said, Jason, when that happens, then everyone else becomes your boss. And little did I know the truth bomb that Mama Wong was dropping on me that day. This idea that no matter who you are as a leader, you're always following someone. And that is sort of captured in this thing we call followership. So there are a lot of models of followership out there. The one we're talking about today is called the Chalif model. And the Chalif model is built around the concept that as followers, we can challenge our leaders and we can support them. And these two axes of challenge and support sort of yields 4 different types of followers, right? This first follower type are what they call resources. Now, I'm not a fan of the term resources when referring to people, but we're just going to go with it for now. But these are your low challenge, low support folks. So you give them a job and they're just like, okay, right? The next type of follower are what we call implementers. And implementers are folks that as managers we can really sort of fall in love with, right? These are the folks who you give them the gnarliest work to do, the grossest thing you can possibly think of, and they just like, sure thing, right, with a smile, without complaining at all, and just get it done. And while this is super great, what we can miss as leaders is pushback and feedback signal of whether or not this thing that we've asked them to do, like, actually makes sense, or is aligned with the company values, or is even in the best interests of the company. So while this is great, we actually are looking for something a little bit more, right? Our third type of follower are individualists. And I think of individualists as your sort of stereotypical, disenchanted senior engineer, right? All they do is challenge and question everything that you want to get done. They don't get on board with anything, and it becomes really problematic. And our last follower type are what we call partners. And partners are sort of this sweet spot of both providing challenge, right, and turning the screws and making sure like what we're doing is the right thing to do. And once we've sort of made that determination, throwing their support behind it and helping you get it across the line, right? Regardless of whether or not they've actually agreed with what you've decided to do. So this is your basic followership model. We'll be talking more about how we apply this model to our management practice in future videos. But until then, be safe out there, and we'll see you next time.